So week 14 of the 2017 NFL season is in the books, and for Philly fans, sadly, this will always be known as the week where Lombardi Trophy aspirations go to die. Yes, I'm sorry. Like, not snarky, sarcastically, deadly seriously, sorry, Philly. Because believe me, as some of you know, there might not be a bigger Carson Wentz nut hugger on the internet than this guy right here, going back to his days at North Dakota State. There might not be. Chances are there probably isn't. And once you saw your franchise go down, and a tough son of a bitch that he was, he still stayed in there with played a few more plays, even after he tore his knee up, because he's a beast, because he's man, because he's Carson frickin' Wentz. You realized the gravity of the situation. And no amount of cheesesteaks, pretzels, or Rocky movies is going to help you overcome it. And again, I'm sorry. It sucks. You never know what could happen, but now you got to put faith in Foles. And instead of in Philly, hashtag trust the process, now it's hashtag trust the knee surgeon, and I don't imagine that's going to trend as easily. It just doesn't roll off the tongue the same. But anyways, that was the real bummer of the week. Anyways, let's move on to 4th and 10 to kick us off. The Thursday night game was actually a pretty good one, and Atlanta came through with a big-time win that they really, really needed, knocking off their divisional rival, the Saints. And you look at the Atlanta Falcons now, and I have my things to say about them at times. I didn't have much faith in them heading into this season, and I still wonder if it's a bit of smoke and mirrors. But the simple fact of the matter is the Falcons are right in the mix. They still have a chance to win their division. They most certainly are in the mix for the wild card in that top-heavy, loaded NFC playoff picture at 8-5. They're in a similar spot to where they were last year. Anything can happen. But even on a night where Matt Ryan was terrible, the Falcons found a way to beat a hot team in Drew Brees and the Saints. Falcons could be cooking something. We'll see what happens. The Buffalo Bills tried their best not to, but they realized eventually that they were playing Chuck Pagano and the Indianapolis Colts, who, after they scored a late touchdown, went for two, got it to only have it called back by penalty. The Bills had a LaShawn McCoy touchdown run, win in overtime in the Blizzard Bowl, 13-7. My goodness, the Bills seem to be the kings of winning ugly, and that game on Sunday was ugly. Speaking of ugly, the Chicago Bears whooped the Bengals all types of ugly, and the cynic in me will say, maybe I should stop watching the games, that way my beloved Bears can actually start winning. But hey, for once, Trubisky looked like he actually belonged in the NFL. They smashed the Bengals in the second half, and it was good to see, even though I didn't see it because I didn't watch it, and I will continue to not watch as long as John Fox is the head coach of this crappy team. As try as they might, the Green Bay Packers seem to want to lose on Sunday. We're aiming to lose on Sunday, and how embarrassing that would have been to lose to the 0-12 Cleveland Browns. Well, late in the game, Hugh Jackson is going to Hugh Jackson, and the Browns are going to Browns. And now all we know is after a busy week firing Sashi Brown, hiring John Dorsey to be their new general manager, 13 down and 3 to go, Brownies. You're 3 games away from history. You can go the distance. It's not right, it's not fair that the Lions have that place in history. You deserve it. You belong there. You own it. It is you. Now go take it. The Cowboys beat Eli Manning and the Eli Giants. We'll just call them the Eli Giants. Steve Spagnuolo took over, and for the first 3 quarters, it was a game. It was a real game. And then in the 4th quarter, the Cowboys just ran away with it. And they now stay alive in the playoff hunt in the NFC at 7-6. Crazier things can happen. There's at least a chance. And if they can beat Oakland on the road this Sunday, and then they get Zeke back for that Seattle game, and then you go to Philadelphia week 17, where Philadelphia may or may not have anything to play with, watch out for the Cowboys. Watch out for the Cowboys. A big marquee NFC matchup. The Panthers beat the Vikings, and that was a huge win for the Panthers. They're 9-4, and it's like nobody's really talking about them. That's insane. Cam Newton might not be playing at an MVP level, but Jonathan Stewart, at least for one game, he played like an MVP, over 100 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. This was a tough get for the Panthers, and they got it. It's not the worst loss the Vikings could have had because, again, they're facing a quality opponent. This was a huge win for the Carolina Panthers, keeps them in the mix to potentially still win their division and maybe, just maybe, get a top 2 seed in the NFC, especially if they win out and the Vikings lose one of their last 3. The Panthers would be in potentially as a number 2 seed, and that's crazy. It just shows how much we've got going on in that NFC playoff picture. Watch out, though, because the San Francisco 49ers, they might not be something now, but they could be down the road. Jimmy Garoppolo led the 49ers to a second straight win, this time on the road against the Houston Texans. That's true straight road wins. I know it doesn't mean much for the here and now because this team is terrible and they're going nowhere this year and their record is really bad. But if you're a 49ers fan, you've got to feel at least a little bit of optimism of what you're seeing out of this offense behind Jimmy Garoppolo right now and what the future could hold in 2018 and beyond. The Eagles win, and it was a massive win on the road against the Rams, coming off of that primetime loss to the Seahawks. To stay there on the West Coast, but find a way to beat the Rams, it was a big deal. But they still lose big. You can talk about Nick Foles, and he's occasionally had some moments in the NFL, but those are occasional, and those are a few years in the rearview mirror. Carson Wentz was playing at an MVP level. We're going to find out in the next couple of games just how much of an MVP Carson Wentz really was, because when you lose your franchise guy, who was only getting better and better and better, to a knee injury, and now he's out for the year, you look at an Eagles team that has to say, what the fuck else could go wrong? In a season where so many things are going right, and still at 11-2, they're in really, really good position. They've already clinched their division. They've already got at least a home playoff game. They'd really, really have to stumble badly the last 3 weeks to at least not get home field advantage for some of the playoffs, or at least that first round bye as a 2 seed, and they still have in the inside track to be able to get the number 1 seed. So it's not time to give up the Eagles just yet, but that was a big loss in the midst of a big, big win. Speaking of big wins and big losses, the Jaguars beat the Seahawks. That was a big win for the Jags, puts them in solo first place in the AFC South, but the stuff that happened at the end of the game with Jaguars fans throwing crap at the Seahawks, like, you're Jags fans. What the hell are you doing throwing crap at anybody? Who the hell are you to throw crap at anybody? And then you got the players trying to go into the stands like Tony Jefferson and stuff. Again, these people live in the Jacksonville area. Why are you going after them? Their lives suck enough as it is. Let them enjoy the moment of the glory. And yes, people should not be throwing crap on the field. And so surely some of the things they said to the players were not very nice. But at some point in time, the most manly thing you could do is turn the other cheek and walk away. Because what are you going to do? You're going to get in the stands in your pads and beat the hell out of a few fans? How do you think this is going to end well? How do you think this is going to end positively? And sometimes it's a frustrating thing about the Seahawks. So many talented players, a team that can be absolutely great, as good as anybody, can beat anybody at times. At other times, they just do really dumb and stupid things. And this is one of these examples of doing really dumb and stupid things that makes them seem like losers. And then I think the other big story of the week was Sunday night, that exciting-ass Ravens-Steelers game. The Steelers found a way to win a game again that they probably should have lost. There's something a little different about the Steelers team this year, because now the games that they should be losing, they are actually winning. And yes, they are still somewhat playing down to the level of their competition, but they're sitting there at 11-2. They're doing something right. They're winning the games that they need to when they need to win them. But then the New England Patriots go on Monday night in Miami, and they let Jay Cutler attempt to quasi-validate his $10 million contract. Like, that's the type of game that shows you why Jay Cutler gets double-digit $1 million a year to start for somebody, and it probably got him $10 million a year to start for somebody in the NFL in 2018. It's the rest of the games where you see why Jay Cutler shouldn't get that contract and why he's never going to be a top-flight quarterback in the NFL. Never has been and never will be. But Jay Cutler shined. The Patriots, I don't know what happened. It just didn't look like they were interested. You can't just say because Gronk wasn't in the game due to the suspension that cost them that much. They just got beat by the better team on that particular day, and that was the Dolphins. I mean, the Patriots should be ashamed of themselves. They just came in there and laid a flat-ass egg. I don't know if they were looking ahead to the Steelers. They just weren't prepared very well. The players weren't focused and ready to play. But whatever the case was, this was a game the Patriots absolutely could not afford to lose because they needed to sit there and put themselves in as good a position as possible to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Now, it puts a ton of pressure on them where they absolutely must beat the Steelers next week and then win out in order to get that home field advantage. And it's going to be a dogfight. And still with the AFC playoff picture, we could think about a team like the Jags with their defense, maybe could beat somebody and surprise somebody, but how much do you really trust the Blake Bortles? You look at Los Angeles Chargers, there's still no guarantee they get in the playoffs, but at the moment it looks like they're the best team in the AFC West, and they're a hot team, and they've got a formula that could be success, and nobody might want to play them in the playoffs. But right now in the AFC, it's all about the Steelers and the Patriots. This upcoming game, Sunday, is going to be a monster. And when these two teams ultimately probably face off in the AFC Championship game, that's going to be a monster too. And I will be looking forward to both of those games. Now, in terms of winners and losers for the week, winners, Pittsburgh Steelers. They're sitting alone in the top spot in the AFC, beating the Ravens. They're now divisional champions. For all intents and purposes, they're going to end up with a first-round bye. You've only got a couple of games left in the season. Big Ben, Brown, Bell, the Killer Bees are all healthy for the Steelers. Then the Patriots lose. I mean, big week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Same thing for the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are still somewhat in the mix, not only for the NFC South, but potentially get a first-round bye in the NFC playoffs. Beating Minnesota like they did on Sunday was huge for them. And again, Carolina, the best 9-4 team that nobody is talking about. And then I also look at the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. With their wins on Sunday, they might not have been the prettiest works of art, but a win is a win, and that's how it counts in the National Football League in the win column. You look at the Cowboys and you look at the Packers, they're both 7-6. The Cowboys have a schedule that could potentially be considered as lining up as favorable for them, having to travel to Oakland, but then hosting Seattle and then playing Philadelphia in Week 17, where Philadelphia may or may not have anything to play with for, and even if they do, they'd be facing Nick Foles, not Carson Wentz. And then the Green Bay Packers, their last 3 games are pretty tough. You're talking about Carolina, Minnesota, and Detroit. Not an easy road to hoe. But now, 7-6, they are in the mix. They have at least a chance. Yes, both teams need help, but you look at the Packers. Aaron Rodgers has been medically cleared to play. He may be playing this Sunday against Carolina. If both of those teams win out and you get a couple of other things to happen, one of these teams could end up in the playoffs. And if they do, that means that they got hot at the right time, and they will be dangerous in the NFC. And yes, even with the NFC as loaded as it is, and the fact of the matter is both of these teams could win out, and potentially one of them, if not both of them, may still end up missing the playoffs. That's how nuts the NFC is. But for now, the Cowboys and the Packers still have reasons to care. If the Cowboys can beat the Raiders and they go to 8-6, and then they're getting Zeke back for Seattle and Philadelphia, they got a chance. Yes, they would need some help, but they got a chance. And the Packers, you get Aaron Rodgers back, you get the best quarterback in football back, you have a chance to win all 3 of your games. And now you could potentially end up 10-6. Not guaranteeing it's going to happen, not saying it's going to happen, but there is a chance it happens. And if it does, and Green Bay backdoors their asses into the playoffs, watch out. In terms of losers this week, I look at the Oakland Raiders. Kansas City have been scuffling and sliding, and you're sitting there and you're in a position, you're tied with them in the divisional race. If you're Oakland, you've got to find a way to win that game, and they just didn't. And it feels like now their season is over. The Philadelphia Eagles, they beat the Rams. It's a quality win on the road in an adverse situation, especially once your franchise player goes down with a torn ACL. But still, the Philadelphia Eagles, even with that big win, even going to 11-2, having their division clinched and all of that, they still lost their franchise quarterback for the year to a torn ACL. And what the fuck is it? Deshaun Watson and now Carson Wentz? And before that, Aaron Rodgers with his shoulder? Why do we have to lose so many of these big-name star quarterbacks to damn injuries for so long? It sucks. You want to watch great players. You want to watch these big stars. And it just feels like we've been robbed of so much of them for so long this year. I'm sorry, Philly fans. I know it sucks. And then the New England Patriots. You made Jay Cutler look like a god. If that doesn't make you losers for 1 week, I don't know what the hell does.